Here's a clip from the Southwestern Lead app.
And we have a special guest with us here today, Dr. Tom Hanson. He is a specialist in eliminating what are known as the yips, which are considered to be extreme anxiety situations that afflict specifically baseball players, golfers, tennis players, and all-around athletes. He got his PhD specializing in sports psychology from the University of Virginia in 1991 before starting his own business where he coaches, he does executive coaching and for business folks and for athletes as well. Really, really cool stuff. I got a chance to connect with him. He wrote this book, Who Will Do What by When. Very, very good read. And we are very lucky to have him here. Dr. Hanson, thanks for being on here with us.
You're very welcome. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I guess I just want to start off by asking, what inspired you to write this book to begin with?
Well, it's a lot about leadership and failures of leadership. And as my wife, Birgit, who's a master certified coach, was working with executives, working with leaders at all levels. There's just usually an execution gap. So it's about closing this execution gap between what they say they're going to do, what they want to do, and then what they actually get done. And as much as it almost can be embarrassing at times, this topic, because it's like, who will do what by when? It's like people go into meetings at the corporate level, at the highest level. I have clients that our thing is about commitment management. And it's like, can you when you come out of a meeting, is it clear who is going to do what and by when? And very often it is not. As it's just clear as that seems. I mean, as you mentioned, my background is sport and sports psychology. And it's really a matter of being able to execute, and you want to have all these complicated things, but it to me, it's like the sport, and it's like throwing and catching is to baseball, and blocking and tackling is to football. Making and honoring promises is in business, in being a leader, in being really anything, being a boyfriend. The subplot in the book is a relationship with between a man and a woman and his girlfriend, and he picks her up, or he comes late. Right in the second chapter, spoiler alert, he comes late and she's not too happy because it's not the first time. And so it's about being able to build that trust. And so what we found is that people just don't do a good job of it. And as much as it's like can feel like teaching blocking and tackling to an NFL player, it needs to happen, because if they don't block and tackle, you can have the best business strategy in the world. But if it doesn't get executed, then you got a problem. So it really came out of just seeing that this very core, like the DNA of relationship, the DNA of business, people just generally don't do a good job of.
Absolutely. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because I did notice that integrity is the foundation on which this book rests. So I was curious how you would define it in simple terms.
In simple terms, it's doing what you say you're going to do. I will do X by Y. I will have that report to you by noon. And then doing it. And then the second level is values. It's, well, I say I value integrity is one of my values. So do I act in line with my own values, honesty, perseverance, whatever you choose as a value for yourself, which is one of the best things you can do. And you guys are great at that in terms of what I've seen with your program, is like, what are your values, and get clear on that and acting consistent with that. So you can think of it as a circle. And if it's a completed circle, I will do X by Y, and then I do it. Now you've got a complete circle. And if you're going through life on that wheel, it's going to be a pretty good ride. But if I said I will do X by Y, like I'll show up, at 2:00 for a call, but I don't, well, then that's an open loop. And that's going to be a really bumpy ride through life. So the quality of your ride through life is largely determined by your integrity, as I defined it.
That's awesome. That definitely makes a lot of sense.
That's really good.
And I remember, in just reading through this book, and sort of as a follow-up to that, I remember that you described 3 components that you named as integrity tools. Would you be able to share with what those 3 components are?
Yeah, well, there's 3 components that are really affected by that integrity. One is the task. Like, does the report get done or not? Secondly is the relationship. If you promised a report by noon, but you didn't do it, now next time you say something to me and it's like, well, yeah, I'll do that. It's like, do I really trust and believe in that guy?
Mhm.
And then lastly is yourself. If I say I'm going to work out 3 mornings this week, and then I don't do it, it dings me as far as my own self-esteem. My self-esteem is a reputation you have with yourself.
Mhm.
So can you make and keep promises to yourself? So those are 3 levels. Does the thing get done? The relationship between you and another person that you made a promise to, and then thirdly with yourself, how you feel. So that's what I think. There's a number of other of integrity tools of make a request, an offer, a promise, to renegotiate. If you make a promise, nobody keeps all their promises because stuff happens. But do you renegotiate it before the deadline, or what do you do after the deadline? And so those are tools I could drill down more on. But I think what you were referring to are those three pieces there.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Now, of course, everyone tuning in has different goals and aspirations, or may not have actually figured out what they want to do or where they want to go quite yet. But what is clear is that these integrity tools are fundamental to everybody,
Absolutely.
right? So how can one maybe who hasn't figured anything out yet, or maybe one that definitely has, either way, how can they what can they do to start developing those tools in themselves?
Yeah, that's a great question. So right into the heart here of what I think is great for someone listening in to get, and that is to be the kind of person that's wanted on the team. It's like, hey, I don't know what, I literally was with the CEO where he said, we're looking for good people. Do you know a good person? I was actually out there in Arizona. In terms of their skill set and whatnot, it's their character. A person of good character with good values, with high integrity, as in you can count on that person. If they say they'll do X by Y, they do it. Whatever their skill set, I want that person. And so what you want to become is that person who is true to your word. If you said, what does it boil down to? Just be true to your word, to put something out there and say, I'm going to do X by Y, a promise to yourself or a promise to someone else, and then do it. Yeah. It's really the building block of success in anything. Because we talk about here, your word is your most important business asset. Can somebody count on you? If they can count on you, they want you. And so whatever the skill set is, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I want to do for a living, but if I'm a good person, if I've got this high integrity, which is really what the book is all about, a person of integrity that can be counted on, the world opens up to you, because there are people that are smart enough to know it's like, I can teach the person a specific skill set, but I can't. It's harder to teach the character. It's harder to teach the values. It's like, if that's a good person, if I can count on, I'll train them to do what I need them to do. But building that character muscle is where it's at.
Absolutely. And that not just even a team. I mean, that's like any relationship, of course. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So from a commitment standpoint, and that's why we subplotted this relationship with his girlfriend, so that everyone could see that it's like, yeah, this isn't even about business per se. It's human interaction 101. And if you're either trustworthy or not trustworthy, it's 2 different lives. Not saying it makes you a bad person. It just makes you someone that isn't going to attract the kind of quality partner that you'd really want to have, both in business and personal life.
Absolutely. So I guess my question then is, what's the first thing then we must do to recognize in ourselves to develop this foundation of integrity? What's the first thing we got to recognize?
It's often the first assignment that we give someone. In fact, the coach, it's a fictional, well, I guess that's clear. There's a fictional story to teach this stuff, is to just really be tuned into promises or commitments. I will do X by Y. Does it happen around you if you're at work? But if you're younger, it might not be at work, but just listen to it. Like with my son, as a teenager, he's like, his job today was to clean the bathroom. And it's like, okay, well, this is your job, and you're the who will do what? Clean the bathroom to a standard that I prescribed, and by when. And so before he goes to his baseball training, he's like, okay, I promise I will have that done before I go and pass inspection. Okay, so it's got to be there. And so really just this idea, and throughout the interview I already have, and it will continue, just hammering this idea of who will do what by when. Get clarity on commitments. So to answer your question, one, just be listening for other people. Do they even make commitments? And then two, deliberately make commitments. Yes, I will clean this room by this time. Mom, I will do this by this time, and then do it. And the more you do that, then the more your parents trust you and you get more freedom, because if with rise in responsibility ought to come a rise in freedom. Mm-hmm. So you want more freedom, be responsible. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, what does that mean? Well, we're operationalizing it here. Say, I will do X by Y. I will be home by 11, and then do it. And to do it again. Then you say, hey, can I be home by 12? Okay. You earn that right to have some negotiation room, because you've proven yourself to be good to your word. Or if it's like, oh, I can't trust that guy, then how about 11? No, how about 9:30?
Go the other way with it,
because you're not going to be home by 9:30 anyway. So I'll let you go, but let's say 9:30, so you're home by 11. That's the kind of thing you don't want. It's certainly not going to fly in business, and it's not going to leave you with that fulfillment. Remember, that third piece is personal power or self-esteem, how you feel about yourself. That's the critical variable for your whole life. You'll perform, achieve in consistent with who you believe you are. So if you build up your own personal reputation as, I'm a good man, or I'm a good woman, I'm trustworthy to myself first, and then to other people, all kinds of stuff opens up. Hey, can I borrow some money? Sure. Okay. Because they're trustworthy. Hey, can I borrow some money? No, you're kidding. You've done it 4 times and you've never paid me back. So there's no trust. So really paying attention to this, like the building block. There's so many different things out there in terms of leadership and programs. I find that this one is like the mortar between the bricks. You can say all the different things in terms of vision, and that's where I like this bigger, higher vision-y stuff. But doggone it, if you don't block and tackle, then no genius football play is going to score. It's going to lose yards. But even on paper, this guy's supposed to block this guy, and this guy blocks this guy, and he runs for a touchdown. Okay, great. But you don't play the game on the paper. This guy's 300 pounds. If you don't block him, it's not going to happen the way it was on paper. And it's the same here. If you aren't trustworthy, if you can't say, I'll do X by Y, and they believe you, then all bets are off. You got no shot.
The way that you described it in the book was the gap. Is that what you describe as the gap? And if so, can you walk us through the steps in recognizing the gaps we have in our own lives?
Yeah. So the gap in that context, what we're talking to is, where are you and where you want to be? Okay. So a great model for coaching is GROW. I don't know if you guys have seen this. It's a genius little structure. So G is goal. So if I say, hey, what would you like to have happen? Well, I'd like to have a 3.3 grade point average. Okay. R is reality. What is it now? Well, it's 2.7. Okay. So now we've clarified a gap. 2.7 to 3.3. Now we got a gap. O in GROW is options. Now I say, well, what are some things that you feel that you could do to close that gap? Well, I could, get up every morning and study for an extra hour before class. I could do this. I could get a tutor. I could commit to doing this. I could quit the juggling club, something that would give me more time or something. Here's all these. So it's a brainstorming, and okay, and what else? And the other person's role. Okay, and what else could you do? Okay, and what else could you do? Oh, and what else? those are to generate options. And then O or W is who will do what by when. Okay, so what will you do and by when? Of these options, what is the most attractive that you think will help you close that gap? I'm going to study between 3:30 and 5 every day. After school, I'm going to go right to the library and study. Okay, that's great. That's one piece. There could be more to it, but now we get that to that commitment level. What will you do? Who will do what by when? And so it's got the teeth of an accountability commitment. So again, what's the goal? What would you like to have happen? Oh, or if someone can sometimes start with an R, it's like, I'm terrible in school. Oh, what? How do you mean that? Well, I'm a 1.7. Okay, that's now you have the reality. What would you like to have happen? That's one of the great questions of all time. What would you like to have happen? To get some clarity on that. Well, I'd like to be a 3.0 student. Okay, well, what are some things you think you could do? Oh, and what else? And what else? And then what are you going to do of those operationally?
Southwestern Lead is an international leadership program that helps you build skills, gain confidence, and discover new opportunities. With professional coaching, a world-class digital learning platform, and certifications that will enhance your resume or application, Lead sets you apart. We'll show you how to turn success principles into success habits through small group training, one-on-one coaching, and guided action plans to help you apply what you're learning. It takes more than academics to reach your goals. See what one of America's oldest leadership training programs can do for you. Visit southwesternlead.com.
You were mentioning you have experience working with athletes, with sports organizations, professional performers. Could you share maybe some stories or some experiences that you have either observed them going through the same process and how they've done that, or as an organization or individually with some of these high level performers who are going through these exact steps?
I could certainly say what's the top quality that an athlete needs to succeed? Could say integrity. If he's or she says, I'm going to work out here to here, do you do it or not? If, and do they show up? Do they show up on time? It's all kind of stuff like that. I was talking to someone who's in modeling the other day, and they were like, well, the biggest thing, given a basic physical, is do they show up on time? Can you count on the person to show up? And it's just what we were talking about. So it's like it's the same in the sports world. It's the same in the business world. Can you count on that person to show up? That's a leader. You don't have to charge out in front and say, well, I'm going to lead by charging on front and yelling and screaming. I'm going to show up on time. I'm going to be like super countable. So it's still that basic core piece of who will do what by when. I will do X by Y, and then you do it. You got that closed loop. So that's the main thing. And there's an organization I've worked with, I won't name, where I ran through red lights. I just so wanted the gig, I so wanted the job that even though we'd have meetings and that it would get several got missed with no acknowledgement. No, like, hey, sorry, I know we were going to meet at 2:00 and I was out in the field. Just, oh, okay, let's meet, and then just skip over it. But it's like I so wanted the job that I just ran through, and then the whole thing blew up, as was predictable because of their integrity. So organizationally, it's that way. There's another company I'm looking to work with now where it's that same soft. It's like it's a softness. Like if you've ever done any ballroom dance, what drives the woman crazy? If the guy just feels soft and squishy, there's nothing you can't count on it. And so it is in so many different things that if you can't count on that person, then it all falls apart, whether it's an athlete or modeling or working at the car wash or whatever it is. So I just want to keep hammering the same theme so that it comes across. And so that's how I'd say that. I mean, I could go on in terms of stuff like, well, my interview with Hank Aaron is super cool. And he, what that is, as long as I just put that in, he's an all-time leader in in total bases, meaning you get a double and that's 2, and a home run is 4. And he's 12 miles of base running ahead of the second place guy, Stan Musial, whom I also interviewed. And so how'd you do that? Speaking of leadership, it's like personal leadership. He said it was all on how a guy prepares to do battle. And so PhD boy goes, how do you prepare? And he said, by visualizing. I'd visualize what I want to have happen. Who's pitching? What does he throw? And then I imagine myself doing that. So the application, and then that enabled him to be really focused and hit home runs, even though he got death threats. Hey, no black guy's going to break Babe Ruth's record. I'm going to shoot you in Montreal. But he kept hitting home runs. It's like, how do you do that? And just what I'm telling you, I would visualize and to prepare what I wanted to have happen. So the application, to someone listening is, well, to do that with your day, to sit and, okay, in the morning, okay, what do I have today? And how would I like that to go? What would I like to have happen? And visualize going through, oh, I've got this and this and this, and then I go to practice or something, and I do that, and just visualizing the day. Then in particular, what I would actually do first would be to visualize, who do you want to be? Who do you want to be, even say 3 years out? Talk to that future self and visualizing that future self of you, and then come back, how would that person do today? And go and get them.
You've personally consulted with some of these high performing athletes and some of the best teams. So you're seeing both the highlight reels and the behind the scenes for some of these people. So it's so easy for so many of us to only look at the highlight reels and think that someone has it all figured out already because they're on the highlight reel, right? So we can do that with athletes when we see them on, the top 10, ESPN's top 10. And then we can also do the same thing with just social media in general, where we're scrolling through highlight reels of everyone else's lives and think that we're looking at our own backstage mess and we're only seeing everyone else's highlight reels. So what can you share with some of the things that you've observed that some of these even top performing people really have the same challenges and the same struggles that we all do personally? They're like, we're all human. So we're all going to be dealing with some of these things on and off the field, whether it's trying to be disciplined enough to get somewhere on time, like we said we're going to, or just battling our own reputation with ourselves and our own minds, just trying to stay on track and holding ourselves accountable and having other people hold us accountable. So what could you share with us about some things that you've observed that would show that some of these people on highlight reels, they're just as human as the rest of us?
Well, it's a great question, because it's so true. It's so, between the social media and the highlight reel, it's like, wow, those people have it all together and I don't. I'm here to say, I'm not sure I've met anyone. Maybe Derek Jeter, but I have a story with him. Has it all together. There's fears, doubts. I wrote another book, a couple other books. This one, Heads Up Baseball 2.0, and this Heads Up, the first version came out in the 90s. And there's a quote I go to in here often, which is by John Lester, one of the best pitchers in the game today, has been for a long time. It's pretty much, if you're going to go into a playoff game, you'd love to have John Lester pitching. And he says, I get 30 starts of a game a year. 5 times I have my A game. 5 times I'm really feeling good and have my pitches. 5, I have my C game. I'm horrible. I don't have anything. And so 20 times I am compensating and adjusting. Well, 25 really. Compensating, adjusting. It's great when everything's feeling good and it's there. 5 times out of 30, he's got it kind of all together. And so that's pretty common in terms of the mental game, that people feel good, and it's a roller coaster ride. They'll feel confident and then not, feel confident and then not. At the very highest level, I can have the same conversation with a major leaguer and then get on a Zoom call the next hour with a high schooler, and it's like the same conversation. So it's very much the case that it isn't that people have it all together. I mean, and the posting can be really hard on the social media because you just don't too often post a bad picture of yourself. It's like, wow, I look horrible on this one. It really caught me looking like, I just got punched in the face, but I'll post it anyway.
Right.
It just isn't too common in my experience. And so it's just a great point that it's like everyone's putting their best foot forward. And I would say nobody has it together. And I would say that the lesson then, what to do about it, is have something that you're shooting for in terms of a goal, back out of that and say, okay, well, what would that give me so I get my values? And then say, you know what? Example of a guy from yesterday, a high school pitcher, his big three, a little process to come up with 3-ish values. One was, it was actually integrity. I was surprised that it came out that way. Being countable, or being loving, and being strong-minded. He had a very strong faith, and that was included in being true to my spiritual faith, and focus on that, and being that rather than what's the noise from the outside. Easier said than done, but at least you want to have a plan. Like your program does a great job with that. It's like, lay out, here's the things to focus on, and all I know, this noise is there, but stay on your thing. I give an example of, I used to play first base, be a foul pop up, and say we were playing somewhere where there's a lot of people, and maybe it was dollar beer night. If you go over by the stands to maybe try and catch this foul ball, they're going to be yelling at you if you're playing on the road. And they're like, I got it, 21, I got it. No, don't drop it. And I say to the guy, what should you do if that's you? It's like, well, just focus on the ball and catch it. Right, exactly. Focus on the ball and catch it, even though the guy's yelling at you. And it is, even though social media, what's your ball? It's like, okay, being a man of integrity, being loving, being sticking to my faith, I'm going to stay on that. Or I'll use Luke Skywalker, although now sometimes people haven't seen it. And seen Star Wars, like the first one, mm-hmm. where it's like, okay, Luke's going to blow up the Death Star, and Darth Vader's picking off people, but he just stays on it, even though any moment could be his last. Stay on target. So you want to pick some clear targets that this goal, tangible, and then these values, that's who I am, and stay on that. And then you emerge as a leader. People want you on the team, and your life takes off. In fact, how I got my first break, in effect, was from grade school. I was what's the word? Working it a bit, unbeknownst to me, in grade school, because then I go to grad school. I'm at a conference for my PhD, and I see this guy, and I'm like, wow, Mr. Hosted. Is that? And he's got a name. It's Mr. Hosted. I'm Tom Hanson. I remember you from Riverside Elementary School. You were great. You and your brothers were great. How's it going? Great. And then 6 months later, my phone rings, and it's Mr. Hosted. He said, I got a job for you. My buddy needs a sports psychology coach who can coach the baseball team. And as soon as I thought of you. And so I get this job from my grade school PE teacher. And it was largely, if I can say, because he thought highly of me. And so he was happy to hook me up with his friend, because I can trust this guy because of everything that we've talked about here. So you just want to keep, if you do, just be a good person like this, set some targets, things will open up. There's a great quote about that from a guy named Joseph Campbell, who's a mythologist. It's like that, well, you talked about follow your bliss. So but I'm saying, if you be a good person like this, like we're talking about, be a high integrity person, doors will open that aren't even there. It's not even a door for someone else, but it opens up for you because, this guy respects you, and this person likes you. And then it all spins out of that.
Knowing what you do know about LEAD, what principle, and I know you talked about this a little bit, but is there a principle in our program that did that resonated with you the most, or maybe it was like the overall theme? I guess just giving your thoughts on that.
by doing the stuff that we've talked about and the stuff in the lead program is going to set you up to have so many more options than someone who doesn't do that, that's just two completely different lives.
Would you mind sharing that Derek Jeter story?
Oh my gosh. The guy that hired me really to work with the Yankees, that was in 2001. I was working with them, said that he talked Jeter out of quitting. Jeter was in his room crying after making 52 errors and batting at like 190. His first year in pro ball is like, I can't do this. And he said, why don't you stick around a little bit? And it worked out pretty well. But there's like Derek Jeter, sort of the consummate has it, was wanting to quit because he felt like such a failure. So it may be the key to your success. It's when you feel like you're a failure, you hang in there and then refocus and take that energy and say, okay, well, I'm going to do this thing right now. And that's so much of a theme. I was talking with a young player yesterday who's gone away to college and is really struggling with being anxious and all aspects of the whole new thing. It's like, he's like, I don't know how I'm going to make it through tomorrow. Like, well, you don't have to make it through tomorrow. You just have to make it through right now. Right now, can you get through right now? Well, yeah. Okay, well, that's all there is. So just get through right now and then it will work out. And so it's just that constant keep coming back to this present. I don't know, what am I going to do in my life? It's all out there. What am I going to do? Like, I don't know, do a good job with today. And it will unfold. And then you'll look back and you'll say, wow, it was perfect the way this led to this, led to this, led to this. It's like, yeah, but if somebody has a line about, Steve Jobs, I think, about connect the dots. It all makes sense looking backwards, but you have to live it going forwards. Amen. So it's a lot of trust, but you just follow the principles, particularly of integrity, I would say, in terms of being true to your word, true to your values. And it'll open up and be miraculous. Like my story there with my grade school PE teacher was one of the most important contacts of my life. He thought that he could refer me to his best buddy.
And here you are.
And here I am. Exactly.
Well, that's incredible. Well, thank you so much for your time and being able to answer these questions and speaking to us about, honestly, uncomplex concepts that I think we tend to overcomplicate. So
absolutely.
And so
I take that as a compliment. Could take that as like, it's like, well, Tom, you're really just talking about some stuff that's really simple. But to me, I like that. One of the quotes I like is a guy said, pardon the length of this letter, meaning it was long. I didn't have time to be brief, meaning it takes time to get to the essence.
Yeah.
And that's always a goal of mine, is to take something that's complex and then get it down to something simple and doable.
Simplifying the concept of integrity and simplifying the whole idea of just who will do what by when, and keeping it ultra simple. And when you do that, it's duplicatable and makes a giant difference in your own life and your own personal reputation and the reputation you have with others.
This clip was from the Southwestern Lead app, where you can stream the full recording and enjoy access to regularly scheduled coaching calls from our team of trained professionals. They'll help you find ways to turn success principles into success habits. Visit southwesternlead.com to learn more.